Good afternoon. I'm Saurabh Mehta, President of TIE Ahmedabad. Well, you know, as Ahmedabad and Gujarat are synonymous with entrepreneurship. It's in our DNA. I welcome all of you panelists on this session by TIE Ahmedabad on intellectual property. Entrepreneurship is all about ideas and innovation. Innovation holds the key to your success and is a great differentiator. It adds value to your business, can be leveraged for funding, gives edge against competition. Your patents can even give you lifelong royalties. So basically, it becomes very important to protect your innovation through patents and copyright. Is as important as protecting your family jewels. Today, we are just going to talk about that. Our panel, consisting of legal, industry, and academic experts, will talk to you about how you can protect, leverage, and get value out of your innovations. This panel has been put together by our very own Jatin Trivedi, charter member and board member of TIE Ahmedabad. Thank you. This session is going to be moderated by Dr. Sanjeevi Shantakumar. He is the Director, Vice Chancellor of Gujarat National Law University and Director in charge of Gujarat Maritime University. He is an eminent educationist, board member, and founder of multiple universities. He has 29 years of teaching experience and an alumnus of Madras University, a recipient of multiple prestigious awards, serves on boards of multiple committees, authored 3 books, published a number of research articles. His resume and achievements read like a book and can be a topic of another discussion, actually. Suffice to say that we are honored to have him as a moderator. Over to you, Dr. Kumar.
Thank you so much, Mr. Saurabh Mehta. Thank you so much, Mr. President. Hello, everyone. My name is Shantakumar, and I'm the Director of Gujarat National Law University. As a university, we do a lot of academic research, training, and consultancy on IPR-related issues through our Center for Research on Intellectual Property Rights. I'll be introducing the theme of today's panel discussion very briefly and move ahead to get responses from our very distinguished and very eminent panel for some of the intriguing questions related to IP and its role in business. You would have noticed that over the past decade, there has been increasing interest by policymakers, academics, businesses, and civil society organizations in understanding the economic and social impact of intellectual property rights. The growing importance of knowledge and innovation has placed IP rights under the spotlight and highlighted the need to clearly assess how intellectual property interfaces with the development in different socio-economic contexts. The legislative reform in the field of intellectual property and the modernization of the IP infrastructure of many countries has raised expectations on how the IP system can be used to promote economic development. IP rights are valuable assets for your business, possibly among the most important asset it possesses. Your IP rights are important because they can, number one, set your business apart from competitors. Number two, be sold or licensed, providing an important revenue stream. Number three, offer customers something new and different. Number four, form an essential part of your marketing or branding. And number five, be used even as a security for your loans. You may be surprised at how many aspects of your business can be protected. Your name and logo, designs, inventions, works of creative or intellectual effort, or trademarks that distinguish your business can all be types of IP. I wish to reiterate that intellectual property is important, whether collectively or individually, to businesses, as they are intangible assets that can be financially exploited because, like physical property, they can be sold or licensed. Every business possesses such assets, whether they are aware of it or not. When a business is establishing its presence in the marketplace, protecting and managing its intellectual property is critical, as it can mean the difference between success or failure. That is why it is important for businesses to understand the different forms of intellectual property, because some involve a formal application and examination processes before a right can be registered, while others come into play without the need for a registration process. At many companies, intellectual property has become an area of focus. Research shows that top management involvement in IP strategy is associated with better IP performance. As with many other strategic issues, the strategic management of intellectual property spans different domains along an organization's internal value chain. An integrated IP strategy should theoretically span the entire IP value chain from the generation of intangible assets in departments such as research and development to the protection of intellectual property in patents and legal departments, and finally to its use by enforcement lawyers, branding specialists, and licensing professionals. Moreover, IP strategies can be crafted at different levels within the organization. There is a need for IP management at the functional, the business unit, and the top management level. Now, do IP strategies really span the IP value chain that ranges from generating intellectual property to protecting and exploiting it? Or are companies still following a more traditional pattern of treating those three aspects of intellectual property separately? And how involved are corporate and business unit managers when it comes to patents and trademarks? How sophisticated is the IP competitive landscape at present? We are here today at the TiE Global Summit 2020, the world's largest entrepreneurship summit, and we have with us a very eminent panel today to answer many more questions that I have for them on your behalf. We have with us Mr. Harshad Jamil, Chief IP Counsel and Global Head IPR from Biocon Biologics, Mr. Mandar Chandrachud, Associate Vice President, Godrej Consumer Products Limited, Mr. Jatin Jalundawala, Joint President Legal at Adani Group, and we have Mr. Jatin Trivedi, Senior Partner, YJ Trivedi and Company. I would now have the first question to Mr. Mandar Chandrachud. If Mr. Mandar Chandrachud can answer this question. Sir, how can intellectual property be converted into a profitable asset and encashed upon? So this is your first question, sir. So can you please answer this question? And I request
Thank you, Professor Shantakumar.
I request you to please introduce yourself and please respond to.
Sure. So thank you, Professor Shantakumar. Thank you, TiE Hyderabad, for inviting me for this program. Myself, Mandar Chandrachud, I work with Godrej Consumer Products Limited for last 12 years. I am graduated in Commerce and Law, working in the field of intellectual property rights for more than 15 years now. I head the intellectual property rights for Godrej Consumer Products Limited for our India SAARC business as well as for our international business. I also head the legal function for the Africa as well as US business for Godrej Consumer Products Limited. So before I kind of take your question, it's a very interesting topic and very interesting question that how the intellectual property can be converted into a profitable asset, especially for the startup operations. And my kind of advice always to a startup business is to ensure that whenever we create an asset, there is a cost attached to this particular asset. So we have to be mindful when we are creating any of these assets. The best thing is to strike a right balance between the different types of intellectual property rights. When I'm talking about the different types of intellectual property rights, we need to give the importance of what do you mean by innovations, trade secrets, and patents. Whether all innovations can be patentable or whether I can keep intellectual property right as a trade secret. This kind of questions one need to ask, and before we spend on any of the property or the patent, what we need is to create a landscape and a process where we will come to know that any of the IP which we are going to create will take some time to get into a granted patent or a trademark. So we need to ensure that this particular landscape is being created well in advance. Second one is about what kind of copyrights or domain names which we want to create for the organization. As a startup, we are all want to kind of attract the investors. So whether I am protecting all the domain names, whether my patents and trademarks I am been protecting in relevant geographies for the relevant products, whether I am having a proper structure to ensure that all my IP is being created and protected umbrella of companies or a proprietor, whether I'm entering into a right agreements, and whether there is a need to have a licensing or a joint development which will create certain set of assets, right? So when I'm creating this kind of ecosystem within my organization, then I can give you guarantee then whatever the intellectual property right asset which we are going to create, which will be worth protecting, which will be worth kind of encashing. And for that, my advice is always, because in a startup or a small organization, what I have seen is that, even though we have a legal person in the system, he may not be an IP expert. So there has to be a right choice of outside counsel as well, who is from your relevant field, the organizational ecosystem, and who can give the right advice. So once we create this ecosystem, I'm sure that whatever we are creating as intellectual property rights will always be a kind of a good platform where we can create a profitable assets. Thank you, Professor Shantakumar.
Thank you, Mandar. And on this note, thank you for such a short and sweet answer to that question. As a follow-up question, I would want to add one more question to you. That how can, according to you, IP assets be effectively managed for business growth and competitiveness?
Right. So again, coming back, or it's like a follow-up questions for the earlier questions. And my answer is, within a system, we need to first understand which innovations are worth patenting. Because we know that filing a patent is a very expensive affair. So we need to ensure that whatever the innovations, and there are always business challenges, your local CFO or your head will always ask you to file as much of patent as you want. But we know that the patent grant in India takes minimum of 2 to n number of years. So whether this particular technology will last for so long. Second one, I was talking about create that ecosystem. And when I'm talking about the ecosystem, what I mean is that for an organization, we need to create a proper legal structure. So for our all the third parties with whom we are exchanging any of the information, are we creating a proper documentation? Are we having a proper NDAs and secrecy agreements in place? Whether we are, if we are creating a copyrighted material through a third party agency, are we entering into a proper work for hire agreements so that all the copyrighted materials will be actually owned by the company, even though we are paying for the agency? When it comes to a startup, are we actually looking at the freedom to operate analysis when we want to launch any of the product? Whether in a copyrighted material, are we also looking at a fair use? Are we doing it? And once we create this particular structure, we are ready with our IP. I'm very sure that we will be ready with the litigation strategy on IPR. Because in litigation for a small time or a startup companies, it's very exhaustive. Because if you are filing or fighting with the big companies, it actually drains your resources. Then if you want to attract any of the investors, the problem is with the looking at the litigation background, there may not be many people who wants to invest. There is a lot of strategy which goes into a management of the IPR, and it depends how much is it actually helps you to grow your business. So if your business is solely dependent on the patent portfolio, then we need to strategize which patent is something which we need to file and protect. If your company is into an FMCG segment, then we need to see that whether you are protecting your trademarks or the brands with given the trademarks and copyrights. Are you creating a proper ecosystem within the where all the functions, say your R&D functions, your marketing functions, your sales functions, your supply chains are actually knows the importance of the intellectual property rights, which as an organization, which we are creating. So overall, just to sum up due to the paucity of time, my suggestion is to ensure that we need to create a well ecosystem within the organization, which will help us to grow the intellectual property rights. And once we reach to a level where we can spend enough on the intellectual property rights, my thing then for whatever the changes or whatever the small variations we want to bring into our intellectual property rights, all the features of it should be protected. So be it be your designs, be it be your copyrights, be it be patent, and the patent portfolio or your intellectual property right portfolio has to grow leaps and bounds. But that's a journey. As I said, that we are investing into an asset has to provide you with the right amount of returns on your investment. Otherwise, it becomes a dead investment. So
thank you so much.
Just to sum up, be very clear what kind of returns you want to expect from the intellectual property rights and invest rightly in the combination of intellectual.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mandar, for very elaborately explaining within the short period of time the importance of converting intellectual property into a profitable asset. Now I would move on to the next panelist, Mr. Jatin Trivedi, who is a senior partner with YJ Trivedi and Company, which is the most popular law firm in Ahmedabad. My question to you, Mr. Jatin Trivedi, is Mr. Mandar Chandrachud has already given a very nice response to the question that how intellectual property can be converted into a profitable asset. Now, a connected question to you, Mr. Jatin, as a practitioner, how do you think that IP has started to become an asset of high commercial value to their creators and owners? In such scenario, how important is it to protect IP? I request you to please introduce yourself and please respond to this question. Mr. Jatin, can we request you to unmute?
Right. Professor, thank you very much. And thanks to the TiE Global Summit, being a TiE Governing Council member, Ahmedabad chapter, and I'm a Jatin Trivedi. I'm a practicing lawyer, senior partner at YJ Trivedi and Company, and I have been practicing in the intellectual property since last more than around 24 years, and this is the 25th year of my practice. I will be a little different than what the rest of the three panelists have to say because they are coming from the corporate house. And I heard my co-panelist Mandar on the the perspective of what the corporates are looking at and what is his suggestions to the startup. I understand that at the global summit organized by TiE is majorly the entrepreneurs and the young entrepreneurs and the young age startups. First of all, I will just say that it is more important for you to focus on the intellectual property rather than any other assets which you may be generating at your organization. But coming to the technically need to answer is that I would say that in a last decade or decade and a half, the intellectual property has gained traction in recent 2 decades. It has come out with the the conventional boundaries and has entered into the unconventional field. So, for example, if it the intellectual property is not limited to a trademark, but has expanded to the branding and advertisements, which ultimately further enhance the value of your mark. And obviously it contributes to its the product's market share too. So simultaneously, the importance of innovation when we are talking about the intellectual property of us. So when we talk about the importance of innovation has also gained the momentum in last decade and a half or two. So when we talk about the transgressing the conventional boundaries and investing in innovation to create a successful product or the enterprise or the services, it has become a more essential that the IP attached to that enterprise is protected well, so that you can reap maximum benefit out of the technology or the product which you are bringing into the market. Adding to that, Professor, I would say that, you know, the intellectual property protection not only expressly list out your rights just for the sake of a tick mark, but also restrict others from using it. That is something more important here. Is ultimately it gives you a monopoly in the market. So your intellectual property without protection would not be just yours. That is something which I would like to highlight here before the entrepreneurs, is that when you not protect your intellectual property, it becomes a public domain or it becomes a public right. And in a way, you are allowing the others to replicate, and you know, they will enter into your market as well. So right under the intellectual property law will definitely help you to protect your invention and have the right to others to exclude from, or the competitor to exclude from the, you know, making it or selling the same innovative product which you have invented by investing huge in R&D or market research and even into the technological research too. So in all, IPR allows you to gain competitive advantage when you, you know, go with a well behaved, or I would say well protected product, or the technology or the brand in that case. Professor, one point I would just add that, you know, it rewards you for your innovative efforts in all that. It is it compensate you for the investment which you have incurred into the research and development of that particular product. And therefore, it is more important for protecting the IP, not only to.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Jatin. In fact, I'm going to come back to you with one more question at the end. Now, I have a very interesting question, especially this is some question which everybody in the pharma and biotech companies are eagerly looking at, especially the startups. They are looking for a response to this question. So I have with us today Mr. Arshad Jamil. Mr. Arshad Jamil is the Associate Vice President with IPR Biocon Biologics Limited. And can we have Mr. Arshad on screen, please? And I'm unable to see him on screen.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yes, welcome, Mr. Arshad. And the question on behalf of the participants here to you is, how is IP changing the technology and business landscape, especially for pharmaceutical and biotech companies? I request you to please introduce yourself and respond to this question.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Shantakumar, and thank you TIE Global Summit, and thank you Jatin Bhai for providing me an opportunity to address this session and young entrepreneurs from across the globe. So, Dr. Shantakumar, as you have rightly, asked me about the pharma and biotech industries and as to how it is changing the landscape for business entrepreneurs. So, as we all are aware that, okay, let me introduce myself. I am the Chief IP Counsel and I head the IPR department at Biocon Biologics. Biocon Biologics is a leading biosimilars company now based out of Bangalore, and led by Mrs. Karan Majumdar-Shaw, a leading woman entrepreneur from India, and she's a Padma Bhushan awardee and a known figure across the globe. She has been, rewarded with very many prestigious awards, and I'm proud to say that I'm associated with her in this organization as the global head of IP department. And a daily routine of our work is a new challenge comes to us to develop the affordable drugs for the patients, and we feel so proud to be working for patients across the globe. So recently, like even in COVID times, we have repurposed 2 of our drugs, and they are very effectively working for the COVID patients. Now, coming to your question, sir. Now, so biosimilars and biotech, ANDA drugs, like in pharmaceutical space and biotechnological company space. And just as an advice to the young entrepreneurs and the entrepreneurs and industrialists, those who are venturing into the pharma companies, or those who have started their pharma startups or biotech startups, I would advise that, it is very important and very rewardous for you when you circumvent and certain patents for innovator companies. So because everybody cannot be an innovator, and innovation needs a lots of funds and R&D and huge efforts. You should have huge capacity for built up. So recently, in the recent past, like say since late 1980s, many of the Indian companies have worked and grown up with the statutory helps and legal requirements, what has helped companies to enter into the generic markets of the United States of America, which is the largest market for any drugs. So there is a route of Drug Price and Competition and Patent Terms and Restoration Act, which was passed in 1984. This is called Hatch-Waxman Act, and pursuant to which you can file your 505(b)(2) or an ANDA application, wherein you have to give certain certifications in your dossier, para 1, para 2, para 3, or para 4. So para 4 is the most challenging one there, wherein if the litigation starts for the patents for which you are filing a P4 certification, there is an automatic 30-month stay on your approval. But once you are first to file and first to file applicant, and then the reward is huge. You get a 180 days exclusivity for that particular generic drug, and it is a help to certain a class of patients, those who cannot afford that costly molecule. And as a generic molecule to that drug, you are entering into the markets not only in the US, and based on that dossier you can enter across the globe. Second scenario, what is emerging now is for the biosimilars drug. So these biologics drugs are different from the small molecule drugs. Biologics drugs have got their own different properties, and as a generic version of the biologics drugs, you can file now biosimilars applications, which was pursuant to the BPCI Act, Biological Price Competition and Innovation Act, which was passed in Obama era in 2010. So BPCI Act 2010 permits you to file your biosimilar application for any biological drug in the United States of America, while all these companies can be placed anywhere in the globe. But since the revenues are huge from these developed markets, so entrepreneurs and all the industries and pharma companies, they try to enter first into the US market and then circumvent their patents. So as per the BPCI Act of 2009, BPCI Act 2009, which passed in 2010, one has to file a biosimilar application and then provide the copy of the dossier to the innovator. When then pursuant to as a next step, within 60 days, they have to provide you the list of their patents, and then there is an exchange, and then they provide you, then come to a compromise. Okay, then you provide your non-infringement or invalidation arguments for those patents. Then there is an agreement to be reached that okay, this number of patents we can go for the litigation in any court. And although there is no automatic 30-month stay here in biosimilars application, but then at times there is a settlement also. So these are but however, there are certain exclusivities which are awarded to the innovators here. So in the case of small molecules, it is for 5 years, which is awarded to any drug application. So exclusivity, I mean that suppose X drug is approved in 2010. So a generic application cannot come to the market till 2015. So there is a 5 years of exclusivity as a reward for their R&D and to the work, irrespective of the patents. And then there are patents. Similarly, for biologicals, because for biologicals drugs or the large molecules, we call it in the pharma sector and biotech sector, so there is a 12 years of exclusivity because the R&D is huge here. And these molecules are developed with a lot of efforts and a lot of expenses. the expenses runs into the billions of dollars, to develop a new biological molecule or new biological drug. So here, the Congress intended to give a more of an exclusivity. So here, for any biologics molecule, 12 years of exclusivity is granted to innovator, and until 12 years, no biosimilar applicant can get an approval. Then there are patents also which circumvent, and the patent exchange information leads for the patents thing for the litigation. Then as part of the settlement, sometimes companies settle also to meet out their to resources, judicial resources, and the litigation expenses, and so that patents also remain and they get a licenses of those patents to come into the market. But this is a very interesting field. I would advise all the entrepreneurs and young entrepreneurs and startups, those who are working towards biosimilars and Hatch-Waxman drugs, ANDA small molecule drugs they intend to develop. It's a huge market and huge development, and India has contributed a lot, and many companies have grown up from small companies to the large companies currently in India, like Sun Pharma. I was earlier associated with Sun Pharmaceuticals as a senior parent counsel. Now, post which, for the past 8 years, 9 years now, I'm with Biocon. And Biocon has become the first Indian company to have launched at least 2 biosimilars in the United States of America, 3 biosimilars currently, 3 biosimilars in USA and other developed markets in collaboration with Mylan. And we are the first. This is amongst the many firsts. Biocon has achieved as the first company to shine India across the globe.
Congratulations, sir, and
thank you very much.
Thank you very much for such a lucid answer for this quite complex question. And in fact, you explained it in such a manner that everyone can understand the intricacies of the issues involved. Thank you so much, sir. And may I now move to the next panelist, Mr. Jatin Jalundwala. Mr. Jatin Jalundwala is the Joint President Legal at one of India's biggest corporate houses, Adani Group. So he is the Joint President Legal at and Company Secretary at the Adani Group. I wish to pose this question to Mr. Jatin Jalundwala. Can we have Mr. Jatin on screen, please?
Yeah, I'm there.
Yes, sir. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir, for your valuable time, and thank you so much for joining this panel. And in fact, we are very eager to listen to you. And we have a very important question because of your very wide and rich corporate experience. We would want to ask you this question, sir. Like, what challenges do corporates face while enforcement of their IP rights, and how should they go about it? What is your stand on this?
Thank you, Professor Santakumar. Good afternoon to all. I am first grateful to this TiE Global Summit organizers and TiE Summit Ahmedabad for giving me this an opportunity to be one of the panelists. I am Jatin Jalundwala, working as Joint President Legal and Company Secretary at Adani Group of Companies since more than 15 years. And prior to that, I was working in one pharma company in Ahmedabad for about 20 years. And as Adani Group, my role is at a group level for all the legal, whatever it is, litigation or non-litigation, as well as the compliance, corporate governance, and company secretarial work. So the question, which is a practical difficulties any organization is facing, that is what challenges the corporates face while enforcement of the IP rights. First of all, any corporate must know how do we keep IP safe. And for that, let me first find out which are the IPs are costlier to me, or if it has been infringed, how much I have to pay for that. That is what cost I have to pay for that. So that is the first paramount point which I must know. Say in house what we are doing, gold ornament, suppose we are going for a particular reception or some function, immediately we come and just put our ornaments in the cupboard. So first I must know that what IPR rights are there to me, which may be for patent, trademark, design, copyrights, all this, like somewhere chemical formulas, all this I must know. I must list out those. And first and foremost thing I must do is get it registered. If I do not get it registered, then immediately someone will take over it and will try to register before us. So that is the first important point. I must have the list of the IPRs. Get also the advice from the IPR lawyers to get it registered, to find out also where to register. Now, after this registration, it's not that I'm going to get a protection. It's very difficult that in today's scenario, the IP protection is very difficult. Say, for example, even if you say example of Nike and Adidas, somewhere if we go, even at the small place, you will find a Nike t-shirts in 200 rupees. How it is possible? So that is the infringement by someone of the Nike t-shirts, or somewhere Adidas shoes may be available at 500 rupees. So it is not possible immediately to get an award or something in favor to protect the IPR. Nowadays, first of all, suppose there is a challenge. What happens? I can give you one live example. See, in our Fortune brand oil, we are selling across India. Now we found various places the same oil at a 50% price has been sold by somewhere. How to protect? We may go for a civil suit, but to whom, against whom? Who is the infringer? We don't know. And in such situation, we appointed a detective agency and tried to find out the source of the production of a particular place and get it seized. That is the way we did it as a protection. As far as other parties concerned, we can have a civil suit filed against the particular, suppose a person is known to us, then we can file a civil suit against them. Say for example, what happened 5 years back, one particular organization, one small company started Adani Pan Masala. And one day in the Mirror, it came, Ahmedabad Mirror, that Adani Pan Masala, and just keeping one live concert, that is musical concert. Immediately on the very same day, we came to know what is this. We went to the City Civil Court Ahmedabad, get infringement, and immediately got a stay that they cannot utilize this particular IPR as far as this belongs to us. So filing, that is one. Secondly, suppose when you have registered your IPR or where you have already applied for your IPR, in that case, suppose some other party is also making an application of IPR, similar thing. In that case, you must go for filing of opposition with the Office of IP Office, that is. Then even at the City Civil Court, we can ask for the loss of profits, loss of damages, everything can be possible to protect our enforcement of challenges the right. Now, a lot of things happen in even COVID-19 situation also, when the people are working from home. In that situation also, it is sometimes very difficult to protect the IPR. In such situation, there is a great role to be played by the HR and the chief technology officer of the company to maneuver to the employees what to do, what not to do, what type of mails they should send to someone, they could not send it, and how to protect when they are transferring some X mail to Y. So that is also required in this work from home situation today. Some of the examples are like that. It is very difficult even in pharmaceutical industries to protect the IPR, because who is infringing is not known. Like John Doe, we are saying, you don't know infringer, then to whom you do. in some of the pharmaceuticals, what happened, a particular drug is sold at ₹100 and the other person is selling at ₹25 only. And when a case is filed against that person, he says, I am selling the same quality of the goods at ₹25, then why it has to be stayed? And sometimes to get a stay is also becoming very difficult as far as such infringement is concerned. But one more example I must give, that one cancer product company in India that was producing cancer drugs and marketing and selling in India. But some e-platform was selling the same drug. And one of the professor in America, he bought that drug on e-platform, which went from Chennai to the particular place in USA. And thereafter, USA authorities filed a case against them, against the company which is in India, that you have no right, no authority, even though you are selling these drugs in America, then they have to prove themselves it is not due to us. It is some e-platform, which if we are not knowing, we have got the injunction from this e-platform in Chennai. And therefore, this has not been any wrongdoing by us. So sometimes it has been very difficult. But nowadays, there are a lot of organizations across the world, like WIPO, World Intellectual Property Organizations, where it is possible for us how to protect our rights. Similarly, the PCT. PCT means the Patent Cooperation Treaty. That also gives us a protection for the patent. And there are about 148 countries who are the members of this PCT. Similarly, there is a TRIPS, the Agreement on Trade-Related Aspects of Intellectual Property Rights, is on international legal agreement between all the members of this particular TRIP. And India is a signatory to all these three above. And therefore, it has become a little bit easy for India also to get the trademark IPRs being protected and not infringed.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you for this wonderful reply that you have given to all of us today. Thank you so much. And now I move on to Mr. Jatin Trivedi for a final question of this session. Sir, Mr. Jatin, the upkeep and maintenance of IP, you know that it's not a one-time job. So what precautions and measures you think should one take while lending out and acquiring IP and other IP related transactions? And one little follow-up question to that is, how can one effectively enforce their IP rights? Because just now we heard from Mr. Jatin from Adani Group talking about the cases of infringements.
Professor, thanks for this question. As being a practitioner, I've seen and I would like to share my experience without quoting the names, but from the experience I've learned that, certain precautions has become more essential when the IP is in transaction. See, due to the nature of being basic and so significant that the IP needs a proper understanding, continuous maintenance in order to utilize its at maximum. So one is that obviously it needs to be constantly renewed, right? There are a couple of aspects that one need to look into for when specifically we are talking about the transactional IPs. So upkeeping of IP, as I said, that it is very important for the IP owners to keep the proper record and timely renew the registration to get the best value of the intellectual property, which are well protected. Right. It is also equally important for the acquirer who is acquiring the intellectual property to check whether the IP is duly protected and is not facing any challenge as to its claim. So that is also something we need to keep on tracking. While in transaction, I would suggest that we should have a proper due diligence done. It is very important before investing into the acquiring the IP that strict due diligence with the strategy. You need to do the due diligence. For example, before investing into the trademark, right? One need to ensure that the same is not a generic word or a dictionary word, or in a way it is not protected before the court of law. Similarly, when we talk about the technology or innovation or a patent, right? The claims is at core. So when you claim something in the patent, when you draft the claims, is always at the core. It's heart of the invention. It is becomes essential in such cases to understand what is being transferred, and it is even that claims are protected or not. Because in case of a patent, that's end once you claim, and then if it is not well claimed, then it is in the next process, it will be claimed as a prior published. So that gives me an idea that, or the point which I think I should share with you is that, proper the search or the prior art search needs to be done. Because when we talk about the intellectual property, it comprises of patent, trademark, designs, and copyright. But in specific, when we refer to a patent or the technology and the design patents, like in such IP, that is patent and design, it is more important, by the law, that it should not be published before it goes into the public, but before it goes to the patent office for protection. So if it found that it is in a public domain, then it's deemed to be cancelled by, or third party can challenge, then it becomes a handicap right altogether when you are acquiring the intellectual property. It is very important to take an advice of the technical person who is known to the technology or the legal part, that when you are acquiring, whether it will be considered as a prior published or if it is not published. So all in all, I would suggest that, in a transaction, the 3 points majorly one need to understand is, one is that the keeping the record, that is, whether the IP is well renewed, IP needs to be kept on renewed, that is essential. Second is the due diligence. And the third point which I would like to highlight is the prior art search. What technically it's called a prior art search in the case of patent. But yes, I would say it's a prior search, well search, that whether it is published or not. So, Professor, I'm of the opinion that, the due diligence has to be very strict and with the proper legal and technical strategies into it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I think, since there are no questions from the audience till now, I think it's time that we can conclude this session by thanking all of you. So thank you so much, Mr. Jatin Trivedi, for this fantastic and very, very nice response that you have given. So I wish to thank all the distinguished panelists for their time and their response in a lucid manner that even a layman can understand these complex terminologies that are used in this subject. So my sincere thanks to Mr. Harshad Jamil, Mr. Mandar Chandrachud, Mr. Jatin Jalundwala, Mr. Jatin Trivedi, Mr. Saurav Mehta, the president of TiE Ahmedabad, and Ms. Piali for providing all the support to make this session a grand success. Thanks to one and all. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
Thank
you,
you,
Professor.
Thank you very much.